morning, everybody. Keith Engle here for TGI Sports Talk. A little slow start there, sorry. I was jumping over quickly from the big football and other, I don't know what we're calling it now, over there, Mac and Jack and Northeast Streaming Sports. I was there with Mac and James this morning, as I am every Sunday. You can always catch me for half an hour before this show starts. But lots to talk about today. I want to welcome everybody watching on Facebook, TGI Sports Talk's Facebook page, YouTube, Twitter. We're live on Roku, the Northeast Streaming Sports Roku channel. Please go download that channel. The numbers are growing drastically there. The content is growing weekly. Great stuff. Another great organization or platform we broadcast to is Let's Talk Sports on their YouTube channel. A lot of great content to watch all day, every day there. And a quick shout out to thumbs up DDW, DDH. Who's DDW? DDH. You know who you are up there in the great beyond. And quick shout out to Ralph Williams at RW Media. Specifically, he does the Sports Corner with Smoking Jim Frazier Tuesdays from 4 to 6 p.m. Eastern on WBVP Radio. So check that out. And Ralph does a lot of other great stuff. Join his Facebook page because he does a lot of great content. Ralph will probably pop in here and we'll give him another shout out. Some news to share, and I'll get more into it again as we go through the show and have a few more people with us. And I'll dive into it next Friday as it'll be kind of a orientation show, I guess. On Fridays, we're going to, for lack of a better term, we're going to shelve the Are You Serious show that I do with the Mad New Yorker. And we've had a lot of fun doing that show for the last couple of years with Carlos. And Carlos may very well continue the Are You Serious brand because, quite frankly, he brought that name to the show and it really fit well, if you know what I mean. And he may do something different, and Carlos may come on the show next week to say goodbye and talk about some of his future plans. But we're going to go back to our roots. If you remember, when we started this show 4 years ago, we started doing interviews with former athletes. And I've been wanting to get back to it. I dipped my toe back into it last year when Dan Harris, our late great friend Dan Harris, helping doing some of the recruiting of guests, and we had a few. Unfortunately, I think the last interview I did was with Dick Drago, and unfortunately, Dick passed away here a few months ago, I think. So rest in peace to him. But we did some great interviews through the years. Roy White, Todd Stottlemyre, Denny McClain, Louis Tiant, tons. I don't want to slight anybody, but we're going back in that direction. I've already got, and we'll start next week, but it won't be at 9:00. Next week's will be at 3 because of some logistical issues with our guest, Marty Cordova, our first guest. He's worked a year with the Twins in 90, I want to say 95. We'll get those facts straight. But we got some other great guests, and Chris F. Grave has helped me, or is going to help me. He's got Marty lined up for me, or helped me get Marty lined up. He's lining up Kevin Mensch, former Texas Ranger. I've already heard back with positives from Tim Worley, former Georgia Bulldog star and Pittsburgh Steeler running back. Buddy Biancalana, who was a sensation during the 85 World Series for the Royals. Played under the great Dick Hauser. Played with some great players like George Brett and the like, and we'll talk to him about that and also some things he's got going on now. Brian Holloway, who was an offensive lineman, a great offensive lineman for the New England Patriots in the 80s and some other teams. He lives here. I think he still lives here in the great Northeast, and we'll talk upstate New York somewhere. We'll talk to him about that. And Randy Lurch is already former Major League pitcher, 11-year career, played with the world champion Phillies. So you got a couple world champions here, and Buddy Biancalana, Randy Lurch. Brian Holloway went to a Super Bowl with the Patriots. So we'll get into all of that. So again, we'll talk more about it next Friday morning. It'll be kind of a Q&A if you want. And I encourage you guys, if you have any contacts with people, sports writers, even the interest, even people that aren't necessarily in sports that want to talk sports, famous with some famous, celebrity status. For instance, I interviewed Tom Dressen, great comic, has been hot since the 70s, opened for Frank Sinatra for 15 years, but a huge Chicago Cubs fan. I had more fun during that interview. It was a lot of fun. So we're going to go back to that format, and we'll talk about that throughout the next week or so. Lots to talk about. Again, your show, you drive it with your topics, but I'll prime you a little bit with some things I'm interested in. And if we talk about all of these, great. If we don't talk about something, it's not a big deal. Obviously, we're in the Final Four for the men's and the women's. UConn going for their second in a row, which would be the second time only, I believe, in about 50 years that somebody's repeated, so it's not hard, or not easy, I should say, to do. It'll be interesting to see how they do that. So it'll be them against Purdue. Matt Painter trying to win his first national championship. He's gotten to the Final Four to get that monkey off his back. But Purdue's been to one other Final Four and lost to UCLA in 1969. The women, we've got a rematch from last year when Iowa upset South Carolina to keep them from getting a repeat of their national championship. They would be going for 3 in a row if it wasn't for Iowa. Some big stories we can talk about with Caitlin Clark. They've had some great stories through the last couple of rounds. The revenge game against LSU, the matchup against UConn, and Gino Auriemma getting his team back into the final. Caitlin Clark beating a team that she wanted desperately to play for and didn't recruit her. And I'm shaking a little bit. Sorry about that. And also the ridiculous nonsense about a non-call, a call of a foul at the end. It's just nonsense. Don't put yourself in a position to get beat, but we can talk about that. And something else that isn't as being talked about as widely, but Gabby Marshall from Iowa had to delete her social media account because she's getting threatened by gamblers who were upset about a foul she committed in that game. And this is not a isolated instance. It's happening throughout sports. Dawn Staley thinks transgender players should be able to play in college sports. I do not agree. Major League Baseball, we can talk about the teams that are hot, the teams that aren't. Yankees are playing well, but some red flags. Marlins haven't won a game. The Mets are struggling. Lots to talk about there. Injuries to pitchers. Is it the pitch clock being shortened again, or is it some of the things I talk about, or is it a combination? You got some star pitchers out that I'll talk about as well. Vlad shushes just played up a game. Vlad shushes the crowd in New York. I'm going to get to your comments in just a second. The NFL, we can talk about the Diggs trade. We can talk about the quarterback carousel. Rumors everywhere about what's going to happen with the top 4 quarterbacks in this draft or more. Carson Wentz goes to the Chiefs. We got the Chiefs and Royals, by the way, possibly having to move out of Kansas City because the public won't fund their new stadium. Good for them. Good for the people, excuse me. And in the NBA, we have the Naismith, not just the NBA, but in basketball, we have the Naismith Memorial Hall of Fame inductees. Congratulations to them. We'll get into it, specifically Dick Marnett from the Knicks, Jerry Weston for a 3rd time, and we can talk about some other guys as well. And I don't know, we got some other odds in it. I'm just trying to prime you up a little bit. We got some comments to get to, and then we will be off and running. Look at you guys are already all over it. Good morning, Kenny Gifford up on the mountain. How are you today? Hope the snow's melting. We lost all the 10 inches of snow we got. Drew, good morning to Drew Ehrlich. How are you today? Good morning to Rick Sherlock. We got a Georgia Peach coming up to be interviewed, which I'm sure will excite Rick, the big Georgia fan. Danny Fuller, good morning, early out there in California. Good to have you with us. Your Dodgers off to a good start too, by the way. I hadn't mentioned them. But now he's all over Purdue. Yeah, did you say you had Purdue from the start? I I think Purdue's going to have some issues because as good as Eddie is, he's not as athletic as Klingon. If I'm saying Klingon, Klingon. I mean, in the English language. Good grief. He's just dominant. Edie is, but he doesn't run the floor the way that this kid from UConn does. And I mean, he blocks shots from all over the floor. He comes from the freaking free throw circle to block shots. He's good. Again, I didn't predict UConn to win, but only not because I thought they were no good or I didn't like them. I just thought it's very hard to repeat. They're just the first team to get back to the Final Four after winning since 2007. I left Danny speechless there, apparently. Backing up binge broadcast, JB's with us today. Cordoba is a former Orioles. I know he played his last couple of seasons there. We'll talk to him about that for sure. Won the Rookie of the Year with the Twins, did play with the Tigers, and I want to play with the Tigers and the Twins. We'll have all that information for you. So that interview, by the way, next week will be in place of the MLB update. We'll do the one-on-one Keith Engle. So the show will be called again, TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle, and they will be interviews. If there's weeks we don't have interviews, then we'll figure something out. Some of the West Coast guys I want to do a show live so you guys can comment and ask questions of these guys. And always please be cordial to these guys, even if you don't like them for some reason. Because there are guys that get on there that are a bit controversial. We've had on in the past. But all I ask is that you be professional and courteous, I should say courteous in your questions and comments, because I'm not going to put them up if you're bashing the guy. I don't shy away from tough questions with guys, but I don't want to embarrass them either. But a lot of the guys we get, especially retired MLB guys, they're all on the West Coast. And if we have to do a show and record it, then that'll fill in when I have a no-show or we have a week where somebody backed out on me or we couldn't fill a week or something like that. But right now, with what Chris is helping me with and what I've got, we've got a good 6 or 7 guys, I think, probably to get us through May. We're not going to do it next week, as I said, and the 19th I'll be off because I'm having some oral surgery. But we'll start this up and go full bore from 26 on. Looking forward to Marty. He's an interesting cat. I talked to him on the phone on Friday. Good morning, Steve Orpello up in Perth. How are you doing today? Anthony Price, good morning. People say UConn. I say Purdue might surprise some people and win. Listen, I think it's going to be a good game. Alabama, I told you Alabama would give them a good game last night. And if you just look at the final score, you say, well, another team got blown out, 14. Alabama played very well in this game, played well defensively. They hit the boards well. They shot the three like crazy, and they slowed down on the three later on, and that's what really kind of cost them. But UConn's a better team. Alabama gave them a battle, as I thought they would, but lose at the end. And I think you might see the same thing with Purdue. I'm actually going to root for Matt Painter because I think he's a really good coach, and I think he's gotten a bad rap here the last few years. So he's kind of, well, I don't want to say he's Dean Smith, because Dean Smith, even before he won a national championship, was still getting to Final Fours. Took him a decade to win a national championship or more. 2 decades almost. Are you going to mention the game between the LSU Iowa? We talked about it last week. Again, it was not it wasn't better than the Super Bowl. Stop it. Look it. I did a mea culpa on my show Wednesday night, and you weren't there, Kenny. So I apologize. So again, if you go back and look at the Wednesday show, and Rick or anybody else that was there can tell you, I did a mea culpa about the women's game. The women did not outdraw the Super Bowl, so please stop. Don't say that. That's, again, you're not helping your case when you use hyperbole like that. The women's, the LSU game was the highest rated basketball game ever on ESPN. It was the best draw of the Elite Eight games played that week, men and women. The tickets at the Final Four were selling for more than they were for the men. An average of around, I want to say, $200 more. At the high end, there were $1,000 more than the men's ticket. And the games have been exciting. I'm not taking anything. Again, people are misrepresenting or misunderstanding what I'm saying. I'm not saying that. And I did say the men's game is more popular. And right now, I look at if the games are more exciting and the storylines are better for the women. Well, I got to see what happens when Caitlin Clark and Angel Reese have moved on and we have a new. You have to bring guys in to replace them. I think one place the women have an advantage is the fact that they stay in school longer. They don't seem to transfer out. So you can follow a team and a player for 3 years or so or more and build up, a following. So if the women continue to do that, I think they will continue to make inroads. I never said they weren't getting more popular. I did say they weren't as popular as a men's game. I gave you a mea culpa, and again, I know you weren't there. And I've done it on a few shows that have appeared elsewhere besides my college huddle. It's been an exciting week. But please, they didn't outdraw the Super Bowl. They had 93 million viewers. How many do you think the Super Bowl had? I'll tell you right now. And if I'm wrong, I will eat my words again. Super Bowl audience. Let's see what we got. Viewership for this year's game was 123 million viewers across all platforms. Okay. So there. Again, you got a good case, Kenny. You got me to change my opinion, which isn't easy to do. You know that I will admit when I'm wrong. And right now I'm wrong. What I want to see if they have some staying power. I don't know where you're getting your number. You've had some pretty good numbers, Kenny. I'll give you that. You have thrown some good information at me, and it's all been accurate. This one is not accurate. Anyway, good morning again to Rick Sherlock. Basketball Hall of Fame players announced. I did mention that earlier. Prices have jumped dramatically. This is for the inductions, I assume. Rick, I think did you go last year or a couple of years ago? I know you went. $200 to sit in the rafters per person in Springfield, $500 for an autographed ticket with a mediocre class, I would say. Listen, I find some interest in this class, but not, this isn't like the best class we've ever seen. But I'm not surprised. I mean, look at the price of everything is astronomical. So that class, by the way, let me pull this up because I wrote it down, but I'll never be able to read the damn thing. I did want to talk about this. And again, some of these guys are a bit debatable, right? In my mind, Chauncey Billups, great player. I think a two-time champion, if I'm not wrong. So I might give Chauncey Billups the benefit of the doubt. Vince Carter, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt. Simone Augustus, I don't know that much about. I assume she was a great women's player. Michael Cooper? No. Michael Cooper is a great defensive player. An important cog on those Lakers teams in the 80s, but I'm not putting him in the Hall of Fame. Walter Davis, another great player, plagued by drug scandals in Phoenix as well. Again, a good player, really good player, not a Hall of Famer. Dick Barnett, I think, and again, you'll go look at the numbers. They probably won't be the best compared to today's. The game is totally different. Dick Barnett was an underrated cog in that Knicks 70 championship and 73 even a little bit too. Michelle Timms, who I know was a great player. Coaches Charles Smith, Harley Redden, Bo Ryan, I think is a worthy candidate in the college ranks. Doug Collins gets in. He's as a broadcaster and a coach and a player, I guess. So I don't know what his designation is. And Herb Seibin, the owner of the the Pacers. I didn't mention Jerry West, who gets in for the third time. He's already in as a player in the NBA, a college player, and now an executive. And I think it's well-deserved. So there you go. Good morning from Canada to Chris F. Grant, who I mentioned earlier. F. Grave. What did I say? Man, more coffee. Chris F. Grave. Little hockey talk as the playoffs start soon. My team's the Rangers. And I've always admitted, and we got to get Jim Bering around as we get closer to playoffs. Probably next week we'll get him back in. We haven't had him on in a few weeks. He's been busy. But we'll get Jim in to talk some NHL. Just looking at it, you guys can comment. I know we got a few guys who do follow the NHL here. I'm a Ranger fan. Obviously, Billy Pulver, who may not be with us because we never know where Waldo is. Is a Winnipeg Jet fan who played very well. The Rangers are going in with, I think, was a pretty good momentum. The Bruins, after a rough start or rough middle of the season, they got off to a great start. Are starting to, and then they kind of had a swoon, if you will, in the middle of the season. They're starting to come back. Got to watch the Panthers. Toronto's going to win someday. To me, the big question here is, will a Canadian team, Chris, and I don't know who you follow, if you follow the annual collapse of the Maple Leafs. I mean, this is the Blue Jays. If I did, I apologize. The annual collapse of the Maple Leafs or another Canadian team. Will a Canadian team win for the first time in 30-plus years? Will they win the Stanley Cup? That's the big question. And to me, there's a bunch of candidates, obviously. Vancouver's played very well. Edmonton, they had the huge 16-game winning streak early in the year, and they had a little bit of a swoon, and they're playing better. Winnipeg, we mentioned, has a chance. And that's probably it. Nobody in the East, really. Toronto, I guess, unless they continue to yearly bounce out of the playoffs. And Chris, again, while Chris's name's up here, I want to thank him. He and I have talked a lot since he started following the show. I talked to him about the genesis of the show and the fact that I've tried to get back into interviews, and he offered to help get a few guys. Marty Cardova was one of his. Kevin Mensch will be one of his. And I'll give you guys a more complete schedule. Maybe even by Friday I'll have some of this worked out. Chris has got some guys. Kevin Mensch is from the Rangers, as I mentioned, is a little bit up in the air. And Chris, you can type in a couple of the other guys because I don't have the names at the top of my head. I know you got a couple more guys that are interested. We don't have solid dates except for Marty Cardova next Friday at 3 o'clock, not the 9 o'clock hour. The rest of these are going to be, and I hope Chris is on the same page here with me. I'm not going to be doing a lot of interviews all over the board. It's going to be our Friday morning 9 a.m. show. If I have West Coasters that can't do it because it's 6 a.m., and Marty had good reasons for not being able to do it at 6. It wasn't that he's not up. This guy's got a regimen. And you'll hear about it a little bit next week. But we're going to do the show live at 9 a.m. If I have some West Coast guys, then I'm going to either record it or I'll do a special nighttime thing and play it, still record it. It's just a matter of whether I'm going to record it or do it live and replay it at 9 o'clock. I'm not sure what we'll do there yet. But I don't plan on, doing it. I did it at 3 o'clock only because it fit my schedule, and we can skip a Major League update in April 1 week. So, so the question is for everyone, by the way, about your NHL teams. Put it up there for Chris F. Grave, and you too, JB. Caitlin Clark is a great player. Her name, here's a name to drop for you, Keith Chat. Carol Blazejowski. Check her career stats out. Pre-3-point line. I'd love to check her stats out. Listen, Caitlin Clark's got a lot of pub, as rightly she should. It's debatable whether she's the GOAT in women's college basketball. There's been a lot of other great players. I think winning a national championship, and this came up, I think, on the college sports huddle Wednesday night. She may need this title to really solidify her status. Tom Adamczyk up there in the town of Amsterdam, almost Perth. We can't make Tom an official Perthite, unfortunately. Well, maybe we can. I don't know. I think your daughter went to Perth. Am I wrong, Tom? We might be able to make an exception. Rick and Kenny, I'll let you make a call on Tom. He's a really good guy. I'll vouch for him if you want to make him an honorary, one of our honorary Perth bucket here on the show. Good to have you with me, though, Tom. I know you checked in on the show from time to time, and I hope you're still here to hear my comments, and you're certainly welcome to join in the conversation. This show is all driven by the comments from the Peanut Gallery / viewers / my loyal followers. Anthony, yes, Caitlin Clark is a good player, but I don't think she can compete in the WNBA. Well, that's an interesting take. I think she can compete there, Anthony. I mean, but there's still people. I read an article just this morning that the Trailblazers are, because the question came up with some on a show. It wasn't one of my shows, but a different show I was guesting on. Would a team, or should a team, take a flyer on Caitlin Clark in the second round in the NBA? No, she can't play in the NBA. Doesn't have the upper body strength. Look at these guys. She is not as good as the last player on the bench of an NBA player. This is where I get myself in trouble, but I'm going to tell you she's not. And there's a story I read this morning that the Trailblazers have been kicking around using their second round pick on Caitlin Clark. Well, if you want to just throw it away, and a lot of second round picks are throwaway picks anyway, they never make it. So do what you got to do for a little publicity up there in the great Northwest. But I think Caitlin Clark will be a pretty good player. I think Sue Bird. I think Caitlin Clark, and Sue Bird's a great player. I think Caitlin Clark and Sue Bird might be similar type players in the WNBA. I'm sorry. Well, again, baseball. Okay, that's fine. I know that I sometimes jumble facts up too, so I'm not going to beat you up. But MLB, I mean, and again, remember something. It's one game. You got to do it consistently, Kenny. It's got to continue. I get why one game. I get why one game with that type of, and again, I would think this South Carolina Iowa game. I don't know what the ranking. I don't know what the ratings were for Friday night's games yet. But I'm sure we'll find out soon. The South Carolina Iowa matchup might even break the current record. Who knows? That's 2016. How many viewers watched the World Series? 9 million. Again, the games are too late. There's a lot of reasons for that. Baseball's also lost TV audiences for decades. Have been going down. 200 stars, Danny Fuller. Thank you so much, Danny. We're starting to make money on this show. Can't believe it. I'm about to report my earnings to the IRS. It's fun. I like it. Thank you, Danny. You're the best. Danny and Chris have come in, and not that you guys haven't always done a great job, but I think they've really added a lot to this show, and I appreciate them coming in and participating as much as they have, along with my longtime crew, Drew being one of them, Rick, Kenny, Billy, Anthony, just to name a few. I know I'm going to leave somebody out. I don't mean it. As soon as I see your name come up, I'll do that. Drew loved Dick Barnett. Me too. Big part of those great Knicks teams, but I didn't think he should be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not sure. Let's take a quick look since we're on this topic. Whoops, I didn't want to do that. Again, it's hard. You can't just look at his numbers. Dick Barnett was a really good defensive player. Dick Barnett, by the way, he also had a great college career, don't forget, too. So you can't, this is also not just the NBA Hall of Fame. So we're going to look at both here if I can. Where's my NBA reference? God darn it. Don't you hate that? Reference. Maybe we won't get where I want to get. Indiana Basketball Hall of Fame, Dick Barnett. Yahoo Sports. Come on, where are you? Doesn't want to give me. Oh, boy. Here it is, finally. Jeez, good grief. So in the NBA, he averaged 15 points, 3 rebounds, 3 assists, almost, through his career. But with those Knicks teams, he was kind of a missing cog, I think, in that offense. Not missing cog. He was an important cog in that offense. I'm trying to get to his college stats, which you usually can go to very easily, but I'm not getting with the Indiana State, by the way. I'm sorry, Tennessee State. But he was a great college player, too. So remember, this is a compilation of college and pros. I guess maybe not. You get inducted for college. I guess some guys are inducted for their total body of work. Some guys, like Jerry West, is being inducted as a college player, as an NBA player, as an executive. So I think they have a very broad qualification list, if you will. But again, Dick Barnett, very good player. Drew, I guess I'll give you the benefit of the doubt that there are much better players that probably aren't in the NBA than Dick Barnett. But how many titles did I could say if Chauncey Billups gets in and Dick Barnett gets in? Won 2 NBA titles. How many did Vince Carter win? And again, that does matter. I'm right on exposure. The game has proved that it's pushed. They will get a good draw. Agreed. And again, I think we did talk about that. If the media is not pushing the sports. And again, remember, this push has come and it's been building, right? It started with Pat Summitt and Gino Auriemma rivalry with Tennessee and UConn. And when UConn was driving towards supplanting Tennessee as the best team in college basketball and went on a great run. But the ratings still weren't near the men. I think this is what I'm worried about as far as this continuing, if it wasn't just a perfect storm these last couple of years with the Caitlin Clark, Angela Reese rivalry, the Kim Mularkey, I know her name is Mulkey, the Kim Mularkey stuff, all of that. South Carolina going for 2 in a row last year and getting beat. I mean, South Carolina may be closer to becoming UConn or Tennessee than any of these other teams. To give you a little shout out there, Neil Bush, if you're out there with us, another loyal follower and a big South Carolina fan. So again, to me, you got to be able to sustain this, and then we'll see what happens. Coop was overrated and deserving was underrated and deserving of Hall of Fame, well deserved. Now, again, Danny, in full disclosure, if I'm not wrong, you're a Lakers fan. So, again, it doesn't totally disqualify your comments. I understand that. I'll bet you, though, if I said, Dick Barnett belonged in a Hall of Fame, you would probably say he doesn't. Or if I said Thurman Munson and Don Mattingly belong in a Hall of Fame, I'm curious. Again, I don't want to speak for you. So I should say I want to hear your comment about Dick Barnett getting in. And in a different sport, Munson and Mattingly being a Hall of Fame in baseball. Just asking. So again, Cooper had a great career, but he played on great teams. If Michael Cooper had played for the Houston Rockets his whole career, would we even know? I mean, I know the Lakers won the midseason tournament this year, so they get that. Maybe he's riding off the coattails of that huge tournament. Sorry, I have to get some sarcasm in here somewhere. Chris, here's some Sunday talk. Baseball players who are and were also musicians. You missed a big one on here, by the way. Eric Shaw, tragic story, by the way. Eric Shaw died in his 30s, had a serious drug problem. I was just watching a documentary on the 84 Padres, team I rooted for because Greg Nettles and Goose Gossage were there. Scott Radinsky fronted, which I would not know anything about, a straight edge punk band. Ruben Sierra has 2 Calypso Salsa albums. You're missing one of the biggest ones in my mind in Bernie Williams, jazz guitarist. But good stuff. A lot of these guys do have some other talents, and some of them are a bit eclectic, if you will. Chris F. Grave is an ambassador of the show. He's a great ambassador of the show, as are you, Danny, as is Rick Sherlock, as is Drew, as is Kenny and Anthony. I love all you guys for what you've done and helped grow the popularity of this show. And I will implore you again, as I always do, to go to Facebook and invite your friends to follow the show. All your friends. Don't just pick and choose. Just invite them all. But don't do them all at once, because Facebook will get pissed, and so you can't do that. Because we're run by a Nazi regime over here on Facebook. I'm going to get banned again. Rangers for Rick. Here come some of your hockey teams, Chris. Rangers for Rick. LA Kings. I would say Danny Zeller. Oh, you know what? Rick and Kenny. Imagine if I were, and I don't know what's happened with Mark Mancini. I don't know if I did something to piss him off or not. I don't think I have. He was a few times I was busy. He was trying to reach me last year when I was moving, and a lot of stuff going on, and I didn't return a couple phone calls, and maybe he's mad at me. I don't know, but I enjoyed having Mark on. But Mark bashes everything LA, even though he lives there. It'd be interesting if we got him back on, wouldn't it? And see how Danny and him got along. Robert Butler, the great host of the Sports Scopes. Did I skip a comment from, I got to go back up here. I feel like I skipped. No, I didn't. I put that up. I thought I skipped JB for a second. Good morning, Robert Butler. I do go on and guest on Robert's show that he hosts, the Sports Scopes, and you can catch that every night at 8 p.m., I believe, on Northeast Streaming Sports and possibly other outlets. Robert, if you want to put any plugs up for your show, you are always welcome to do it here, and I'll put it up in the comments. Clark is good, but I agree she's not NBA material. Yeah. Why can't they just be, again, the women, whether the argument whether women and men can, or women can compete with men, to me is pretty simple. If they could, why they'd be competing now? Let's put them all together now and see what happens. There wouldn't be any women playing. She's a great women's basketball player. Why isn't that enough? So, I don't know. I mean, it should be enough. He's in if his daughter went to Perth. Honorary on your recommendation. There you go, Tom. If you're still with us, there he is. Hold on. I got a comment from Tom right below here, Rick. Both his son and daughter went to Broad Auburn Perth. That's, I don't know. Well, it's not their fault, I guess, that the schools combined. You know, we do have a little bit of a bias against Bard Auburn Perth, but Rick, I think I'm going to allow Tom to be in the honorary Perthites. He lives close enough to Perth. So, Tom, welcome aboard. You are now. So, Tom, there's an important rider that goes along with this honor I've bestowed on you. You have got to badly misconstrue the English language. You have to be bad at math. Because, again, and say just stupid stuff. That's because of me, not so much Kenny and Rick. And Steven is part of that bucket, too. I miss Steven. He's a part of our Perth bucket. He doesn't even think she's playing in the WNBA. She's been offered $5 million. She's been offered $5 million to play in the summer. Two different, by the way. Ice Pick, Ice Cube, Ice Tea, one of those ice wrappers. Probably getting myself in trouble again. Has offered her $5 million to play in the summer 3-on-3 league. There's a couple of these. Some of the NBA players playing, some college players playing, some street kids playing, street ballers, I should say. And she's been offered $5 million. And I believe she got offered like $10 million from a competing summer 3-on-3 league. So that's not going to keep her from playing in the WNBA. It's a totally separate thing and takes place at different times. So she would play, I think. Well, it's true that it's true she's a great story, most skilled woman ever in the NBA. Ever the NBA's crazy talk. Absolutely. 14 mil Friday ratings. There you go. So they did drop a bit. I think it's very interesting that we go from 93 to 14. So is it just LSU and Angel Reese? And why was I calling her Angela for all Wednesday night? See what I mean, Tom? So again, and we'll have to see what the men's ratings were last night. Maybe get a better comparison. Let's see if we have it. Robert's probably already got it. See if we got last night's ratings yet. That's 1979. We don't care about that. 14 and 17. Viewership. So this is UConn and Iowa. Oh, that's UConn and Iowa. Sorry, that's a women's. 14 million. There you go. Thank you. Peaked at 17 million. Yeah, I guess we don't have last night's numbers yet. That might be an interesting comparison too, Kenny. So maybe that South Carolina Iowa matchup is not going to match last week's rankings. Neil Bush, I gave you a little shout out. Neil Bush says, I agree that Barnett's body of work justifies a Hall of Fame because you got to go back. He played for one of the historically black colleges in college. And there's another, I know I plug this all the time, but there's a great ESPN documentary about some of the great basketball players that played in historically black colleges. I think it focuses a lot on Earl Monroe, but also it talks about some other great players. I know Dick Barnett is part of that. I think he's just a great player. I'm not sure. Dick Barnett, I remember having a funky shop, but I'm trying to picture it. I don't think he looked like a dog peeing. Maybe he did, Kenny. I also haven't watched a dog pee in a while, so I'll tell you what, I do too. Rick mentions Caitlin Clark, father. You can see where her intensity and drive comes from. He is an intense guy, and I still love the fact that 2 weeks ago, or whatever it was, 10 days ago, earlier in this tournament, when she was bitching and moaning to the refs, like on every call, he told her to shut up and play. So, good dad. Don't sit there beating up the refs. Tell your daughter to get her head out of her butt and play basketball. Some actual parenting going on. Drew switches. And again, guys, we can go. This is the stream of consciousness. So we've started jumping around. I love this. I love what we've done on Sundays here these last couple of months. So we're all over the board. We'll talk about anything pretty much you want to talk about within reason. Controversial stuff, just everyday stuff. I have some comments for about Don Staley, but if we don't get into it today, we'll get into them on Wednesday. We knew the Marlins, and Drew and I both talked about it on the preview show, that the Marlins would be bad. Did we think they'd start 0-9? No. I mean, a couple more losses, they're going to be on Oriole watch, right? What's the record? 21, I think, Drew? 21 in a row, I think, in 1988 8 or 9. The Orioles started 0-21, I think. See how close I am. Drew, check that out for me. And by the way, bad news. More bad news for them. Uni Perez has to have, I think, Tommy John surgery. We have a plethora. And I'll throw this out there now since this comment had come up. This is what I try to do. My little notes I get in during the course of the show as you guys go to certain topics. There's a lot of, Tony Clark says that the pitch clock and now the shortening of the pitch clock, I think they shortened it. Didn't they shorten it this year? Oh, yeah, whatever. He's talking about the pitch clock in general is an unprecedented threat to the game. That's a quote. Unprecedented threat to the game. Because he's blaming the pitch clock for all these injuries. Now, I think there's more to it than the pitch clock. Again, I've talked ad nauseum about the way pitchers are not developed correctly. They don't throw enough to strengthen their arms and get ready for the stress of pitching in the major leagues at a high level. Look at this list of pitchers that are hurt. I just mentioned Perez, Strider for the Braves, Bieber for the Indians, Garrett Cole, we already know about, Eduardo Rodriguez, Giolito, Steele, Luis Garcia. And I think these guys were all hurt this spring, if I'm not mistaken. I might have a different guy in there. And I only put guys in there that I noticed with arm issues. I wouldn't doubt some of the other issues that these guys have, whether it's a hip or a whatever. It could also be related to this. Robert Stevenson, Devin Williams, McGill, Loaizaga for the Yankees. That's just to name a few. I picked out a few names today. And if you don't think these names are big enough, I mean, you got some of the best pitchers in baseball we just talked about. At least 3 or 4, 5 number one starters on teams. South Carolina defeated after losing all 5 starters from last year's one-loss team. Very impressive. Great coaching job there in South Carolina. I did want to mention something else about this. Hold on here. Anyway, Dawn Staley, I was thinking about 2 things about Dawn Staley. She's done a great job with this South Carolina team. And if it wasn't for Iowa, that last year's one-loss team, don't forget, you need to mention, came to Iowa. At the hands of Iowa, I think in the Final Four. You can correct me, Neil, if I'm wrong, but I think it came in the Final Four, or this team would be going for a three-peat potentially this year. So great coach. That's a great job when you lose 5 starters. And again, with the transfer portal and stuff the way it is, and we don't hear about it in the women's game the way we hear about it in the men's game, but I don't doubt that it's happening at this high a level. My one issue is I don't understand how she really can think that, and again, I don't care what people want to do. I really don't care what people want to do. If they want to, I don't know what the word is, transition, that's fine. Go ahead. But men can't be allowed to compete in women's sports if they're going to be transitioning from a man to a woman. Dawn Staley thinks they ought to be able to do this. She's really one of the first I've heard come out in favor of it. She said, in her opinion, if you're a woman, you should play. If you consider yourself a woman, you have and want to play the sport, or vice versa, you should be able to play. I mean, you identify as a woman. I mean, geez, why do I have to transgender that? Why can't I just identify myself as a woman? Oh, God. I'm sorry. We don't have to get into that today, but it makes me, I shake my head. And again, I'm a live and let be person. I do not care what people do. I really don't. But again, when it starts to affect me, or other things in society that I enjoy, then I'm going to speak up, and that's ridiculous. Kenny said, I'm not going to get in this debate. Neil's a big South Carolina fan, so I will, and maybe Neil did say starters, so I wonder if maybe the center you're referring to, Kenny, was not a starter last year. So I'm sure Neil will respond and confirm or deny. JB, who the heck? Oh, 38. Confused me. JB, I'm trying to figure out who's number 38. I'll tell you who should be in the Hall of Fame. 38 special, snub from the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. I don't know how the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame does their voting. Some guys get in, they have 2 or 3 big hits and they're in, or one. and other groups wait decades. How does Chicago wait 50 years almost to get into the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame? I mean, come on. Oh my God. Anyway, it's funny. I thought you were talking about 38 special, and I'm going, who the hell's 38 special? What? Who am I missing? Good job. Jim Marshall was just a piece overshadowed by other Hall of Fame players. So is Coop. That's a good example. That's a good comparison, Rick. I mean, Jim Marshall was was he a great player or a very good player? Was he overshadowed, or was his, and again, I'm not saying he was, I'm just talking out loud. Or was his performance somehow enhanced by the presence of 3 other Hall of Famers next to him, or 2 other Hall of Famers next to him? I think he's great. I have no problem if Jim Marshall was in the Hall of Fame. Again, he held the consecutive game played record for a long time, and for a defensive lineman, I think that's amazing. I'd like to get an interview with him, and I was working on it, but I don't think, from what I understand from some people that I had talked to, that his health is really conducive to that type of situation. So, but it's probably a good comparison. But again, my question would be the same way, Rick. If I took Jim Marshall off that great Minnesota defensive line and I put him in Buffalo, would he have had the same kind of career? And would we be talking about him as being Hall of Fame worthy? Just like I said, if Cooper didn't play for the Lakers and he played for the Rockets or played for the Kansas City Royals or somebody, I don't know, were they around when Coop played? I think they were still Kansas City. Would we be having that conversation? I'm not so sure. And again, you could make that argument about anybody. I get that too. Bernie Williams doing a residency at the Carlisle Cafe. There's a Mad New Yorker, Carlos Chavez. And Bernie does have at least one album that I'm aware of for it's all acoustic jazz guitar, and he's very good. Bernie does come up here for the New York State Baseball Hall of Fame. He was inducted, I think he was inducted a couple of years ago, but he does come up for that event every year. Mark owed many steak sandwiches. Maybe that's why he went underground. I got to get him on a show, and it'll probably be the last time it'll be on, because Danny Fuller's head's going to explode when Mark starts bashing the Dodgers and bashing the Lakers. I'm going to bash the Lakers, sorry, but hoisting a banner for the bogus midseason tournament. LeBron, I don't know. But the Dodgers, I said last year, I thought Dave Roberts was the manager of the year in baseball last year, because he navigated a team to over 100 wins. I know he went out the first round of playoffs. Was the first round, whatever. He didn't make the World Series. But he navigated a 100-win season with a team that lost every one of its starting pitchers for considerable amounts of time. And at the same time, I think there's more pressure, as much pressure on Dave Roberts this year as anybody in baseball. He's still searching. I should have mentioned poor Mark. Mancini, yes, Mancini's a Pirate fan because, if I'm not mistaken, he's a Pittsburgh boy. Now I got the hiccups. Oh. Anyway, hopefully they're gone. Yes, he's definitely a fan of Pittsburgh, and he's already, because I do still follow Mark and I see his posts and comment on them from time to time, but he was all excited last year when the Pirates were flying high in June, maybe even into July. And then when they folded, he started to bash the Dodgers. And as I said to him, again, you can dislike teams, but you have to, when you're talking about a team and bashing them for not winning a World Series in a full season, they did win in 2020, but in a full non-COVID season since 1988, when your team hasn't won since 1979, glass houses and stones and all that stuff. Men's basketball players would have learned defensive strategies. Would have to learn better defensive strategies against men. Oh, if they were allowed to play. Are we talking about? I don't know what we're talking about, Carlos. If men and women played together, just pure athleticism would let them win. Or do better than the women. And if you allowed transitioned men to play against the women, if they had any talent at all, how would they not dominate? Didn't Tom play for Scully? Tom, Adam, check if you're still here. I think Tom might have played for Scully. I know a lot of his very close friends did. I don't want to start a fist fight here. And I think the white team and Little Giants. Well, Tom's a little younger than you, Kenny. Because I think Tom's a little younger than me. But I think the Scully thing is a good thing. And now, I don't know, maybe I've got to take this whole Perth thing and reconsider it if that's true, Tom. I'm kidding you. Misconstrue. Well done as an example. What do I say? Misconstrue. What do I say, Drew? This is another one that really pissed my wife off. There's several things, and this is one I don't necessarily always do on purpose. Misconstrue. Some of them I do now just to, get my wife to go. Like, I know that it's foliage, not foliage, but I can't stop doing it. There's a few others that aren't coming to my mind now, but it's just something I like to do. Chris Efra, yes. By the way, accomplished professional. I'll give you a better one here. Accomplished professional wrestler Randy Poffo did release a rap album. I did not know this. Just imagine trying to rap with that voice. Oh yeah, brother. He'd have a Slim Jim in his hand as well. By the way, Randy Poffo was a fairly highly rated catcher in the St. Louis Cardinals organization before. He wasn't going to make the majors, I don't think. So maybe a mid-level rated catcher in the Cardinals organization before he became a highly accomplished. I don't know what accomplished means in professional wrestling. He followed the script well. No, he did. I mean, he won titles, so I get the accomplished part. Gotta stop leaning on the table so much. But again, well-rounded athlete. So I did not know he had a rap album. I wouldn't know anybody that ever had a rap album. I can tell you that right now, Chris. Drew, too early to tell. Giving us some numbers from baseball. These are some, and again, hot and who's not. Too early to tell. But these are important to kind of look at. Betts with 5 home runs, a rookie. The April record, I think, is still 11, held by Greg Nettles, maybe tied Babe Ruth. I'm not sure. I doubt he tied Ruth because April was so short there. But I was short when Nettles did it too. 11 home runs in April. RBIs, Teoscar, I know that's a misprint. 14, I'm going to guess is the number. If he's got 140, he's on his way to a record. Stolen bases, Tarong, who I keep playing and then sitting. Siri, Duran, 6 batting average. Will Smith batting average definitely is skewed. The other numbers are, to me, are still relevant. The batting averages get really skewed, but nice start for Smith. On base percentage, 538. Slugging, Betts, 902. OPS, Betts, 1440. Betts is certainly off to a great start. How many errors does he have right now, Drew? I really have my doubts about Mookie Betts and the Dodgers and whether Betts will be able to sufficiently play shortstop on an everyday basis. I just have my doubts. But we'll see. He's a great player. He's a great athlete, obviously, and a tremendous bowler, which means nothing. CA joins us. Have a blessed Sunday yourself, my friend. Good to have you with us. Let's see. Kenny, I start watching Wendy's show, but my mind can't stay on point for that long. It does here. Oh, gosh. So I guess today's a better fit for Kenny. And you can correct me if I'm wrong, Kenny, because we're just all over the place. We started to do a little more of that on Wednesday nights and not stick to a straight script. We try to cover what I want to do on all my shows, and interview shows got to be a little different, right? But as we get into that, and again, I am relaunching TGI Sports Talks one-on-one with Keith Engle. We'll start interview shows again. The Are You Serious show will be shelved. No disrespect intended to the Mad New Yorker Carlos. I've had fun doing it for a couple of years, but I needed to switch, and I've really needed to get back to doing this. And this was the time slot that I did it in originally, and that's where I want to go. And I certainly wish Carlos the best. And if Carlos, I'm going to do just a kind of a preview show on Friday, talk about maybe some of the people we have lined up and what we plan on doing with it. And Carlos is certainly welcome to come on for a little bit Friday to say goodbye and talk about what his future plans are. Because I told him, he came up with that title for the Are You Serious show, which I think was perfect for the format that we had. And he owns it. I won't be stealing that in the future in any way, shape, or form. So maybe Carlos can certainly continue that show in some shape or form if he cares to. And Carlos does guest on other shows. Probably ought to do a hockey show or a soccer show. Where was I? 88. I was right. 88 was my first thought. And by the way, they lost, if I'm not mistaken, Kyle Ripken Sr. got fired very early in that season. Frank Robinson, or sometime during that season, got fired. Frank Robinson came in, and the very next year, the Orioles were competing. They didn't win, but they were competing for American League East title with the Blue Jays. All summer long, they were chasing them. I think they finished a couple games out of first place. Neil says pitchers become throwers. No one pitches anymore. Yeah. How hard can you throw? I want 100. Well, and again, that's part of the factor, Neil. The pitch clock is certainly an issue with these injuries. I have no doubt about it. And we talked about it. We don't think about the unintended consequences of the rules that we put in, whether it's MLB or it's the NFL. The NFL's got stupid rules we put in, which we haven't even touched on yet. But we certainly touch on it in the next hour, or we can talk about it in future shows because we got a long time before the NFL starts to play. But these leagues put in stupid rules that are unnecessary because you've already got rules in your rule books most of the time to allow for whatever you're trying to correct with your new rule. And again, there were rules I've said this forever, there are rules on the books to speed up play and keep play moving along. You didn't need a pitch clock in the 60s and 70s to make games 2 hours or less for the most part. I mean, there were rules. You got the ball, you threw the ball. You didn't get out of the batter's box. Enforce the rules that are there. And also the fact that from the time these kids, it's even in college, I suppose now. I've always said from the time they get to the minors, and I'll still use the minors because I don't think it's too late to develop arm strength once you get to the minor leagues. But these kids are trained to throw as hard as they can for as long as they can, and that's it. And if you're a starter, you're going to throw 90 pitches or 80 pitches, and we're going to take you out. And if you're a relief pitcher, you're only going to pitch 1 inning. So go out there and throw as hard as you can. And they build up no arm strength. They don't throw on off days. Major league pitchers back in the 60s, 70s, and before threw every day. Nolan Ryan with the Rangers, when he was running the Rangers, tried to make a change to this throughout the organization, and unfortunately, he wasn't there long enough to make it happen. But we want the things they do to protect. In my mind, the money they have invested in these starters hurts them and partly causes them to go down with these injuries. But you're not wrong, Neil, at all here. Senga's a great example, too, of a guy who's hurt. I hadn't even thought of him. He went on a DL. The talk was he was going to miss a few starts. I'm still not so sure because I do read articles that the socket is a problem. And if he's got a problem with the socket in his arm, he's not missing a month. We'll see. And I hear other reports, in fairness, I hear other reports where, he'll be back in the end of April. I just, again, I don't believe what anybody tells me anymore when it comes to these organizations because they lie or they at least give misinformation if you want to be nicer about it. Kenny drilling, that's enough of the Orioles' past history. LOL. Kenny, I need to know. I don't know if I've asked you this question. Kenny's a big promoter of the Orioles, and both Drew and I have picked the Orioles, Kenny, to make sure you're aware. I think I've told you before, to win the World Series this year. So you're not going to win the World Series this year. But I don't know if I've asked you point blank. Have the Orioles always been your team, or have we bandwagon jumped a little bit? I don't mean any disrespect. I'm not sure. Baseball players are the worst athletes when it comes to being in shape. You know what? Here's the thing, though, Kenny. They're better. They're in better shape today than they ever were before. They were probably better off when, they were Babe Ruth, and Frank Howard was, a big, powerful guy, but he wasn't in the best of shape. Harmon Killebrew. The guys didn't get hurt. They got hurt. They didn't get hurt the way these guys get hurt now. Some of these guys are too muscular because the training that they do doesn't keep them from getting injured during baseball activities. Right? And again, also got, I know I keep going back in time. I'm the old guy. Get off my porch. I'm not the only old guy here, though, by the way. A lot of them played through these injuries before as well, but the money wasn't as big. Guys were worried about getting cut. They wanted their postseason money. They had to have it. They couldn't afford to lose their job, so they go out there and pitch pretty well with bad arms. Oh, thank you, Rick. And again, this is my mistake about the women's basketball popularity and exceeding the men at the present time, which is totally accurate. I did a mea culpa, and I'll continue to do it. I do want to see it continue. And when these great stories of Caitlin Clark, and Angel Reese, and Kim Malarkey, kids. Kim Malarkey's views on life are very scary, by the way. As a very conservative person myself, she has no tolerance for anybody who doesn't think like she does. I do. My conservatism usually stops at social issues. I just doesn't affect me. Iowa beat South Carolina in the semifinal. That's what I thought. Hopefully payback this year. That's why it's going to be a lot of fun to watch. Two really good coaches, some really good players, obviously. South Carolina's got an undefeated record this year, one loss last year. So they've got one loss over the last 2 years. This is UCLA-esque. I don't know what they did 3 years ago, Neil. What was their record when they won a championship 3 years ago? Steve, you're pro. LSU beat Iowa last year in the championship game. Yes. Did know that. And that's why I was talking about the revenge game. Not necessarily in the championship, but they got a chance to knock LSU out of this year's tournament. And that was both these games were hotly contested, physical games. I mean, it's certainly, we talk about the physical play in the men's tournament. There's certainly no lack of it on the women's side either, currently. If you look at the way some of these teams play, they play some tough defense. Riley Gaines. Riley Gaines is, geez. Let me check something out here while you say that. So, also known as Riley Gaines Barker. Oh, she's a swimmer, right? Yeah. So she's 4. I mean, again, this is where I think most of the controversies come from the world of swimming, right? Where we've had a transgender male competing with females. I'm surprised that again. I guess I wouldn't care if a transitioned woman who became a man wanted to compete against men. I don't think they trying to get the right pronouns. Not easy for me. I don't think they could compete. Still too early, but surprisingly successful conversions by Garrett Crochet and Jordan Hicks, moving from a bullpen to starters. Shane Bieber injury is heartbreaking considering his great comeback. I don't disagree. And again, he's definitely gone for the year. He's going to have surgery, Tommy John surgery. I believe it's Tommy John surgery, right? Hicks, I talked about during the preview show that I liked his potential in that San Francisco rotation. San Francisco, I would consider, by the way, I picked them to make the playoffs. They're 2-7. What are they? No, sorry, 3-6. Not the worst start. It's not the end of the world. They certainly, again, not the end of the world. But I picked them to to be a wild card in the National League. Some of the other teams that have started off well, the Yankees, the Indians off to a bit of a surprising start. Red Sox off to a decent start. I thought they'd be atrocious. The Tigers off to a good start. Even the Royals, the Rangers, again, maybe I'm wrong about the Rangers again. I expected them to struggle and step back a little bit. The Angels, they've lost their last couple of games, I think. Let's see, where are they? Yeah, they lost their. Well, they won one more. They did lose a game, but they'd won 4 in a row after having a players team meeting after 2 games. Then they went on a 4-game win streak. So I was ridiculing them. I guess it was a good idea. So kudos to them. Pittsburgh, as they did last year, off to a flying start. We'll see if that continues. Milwaukee, we did not have a lot of faith in. Off to a pretty good start. And the Dodgers, obviously off to a good start. Some teams that I'm not surprised, but we're going to have 4 teams maybe this year with a chance to get to 121 losses. Let's go. Let's go, A's. We'll talk about you moving to Sacramento. How about Sacramento? The A's are very fittingly going into a 14,000-seat stadium. 10,000 now. They're going to expand it up in Sacramento. Them playing in a minor league stadium is probably very apropos before they're moved to Los Angeles for the next 3 years after this. But the White Sox, the A's, the Marlins, as Drew mentioned, 0-9, and certainly the Rockies all could compete to get to that 121 loss mark in my mind. Go! Gotta go! You gotta go. I don't know what G2G is. I'm sorry. Pickup takes on review of MLB Update Show. And again, like months ago, Keith, build on YT sports program and money will be getting premium subscriptions. Keith, build on YouTube. I think sports programming and many will be getting premium subscriptions. If we're talking about the direction of sports, Major League Baseball in general, all the sports actually, heck, on Max, HBO Max has got sports on every night of the week. A lot of the NCAA tournament I could go watch on Cinemax, or not Cinemax, HBO Max. But this is where you're going to go pretty soon. I know, Kenny, we've had this conversation. Kenny won't watch. You're paying now, unless you're watching on an antenna, a digital antenna, which do work. I have one on a couple of my TVs and get like 50 channels. I don't pay a lick for that. But unless you've got an antenna, you're paying for all of the programming you watch, including sports. So the price is either going to go up on those subscriptions, or these teams, these leagues are going to continue to move to streaming services. Apple keeps getting bigger. Horrible production and broadcasting, by the way, on Apple. Peacock is getting bigger, which is NBC. And you may see teams moving their own programming to streaming. So their own local programming to streaming. So if that's where we're talking anyway. There you go. There you go. Kenny, I don't think I'm going to try to say Camelia Cardoso was a reserve behind Aaliyah Boston last year. I'm not going to doubt that. Are you back on the wood bench? No. No. What's happening is, I think I was cleaning the other day and I moved my new desk, my newish desk that I got when I moved. And I think I'm a little off kilter. Plus, I'm leaning in a little bit more, and my belly, which you can't see, is banging up against the desk. And as I get excited, whatever. I do get a little animated, which, again, is good for the show. It's good for me. It's good for me as well. He played the anthem at the MR introduction in the Cooperstown. Oh, Mario Rivera. Thank you. Mo would have been sufficient. Bernie is very, very accomplished with that guitar. Excellent. But time to retire Bernie's number, by the way, and I think that might be happening this year. So a little bit more update here from Drew. Braves hitting 309 as a team. Also off to a pretty good start at 5-2. Losing Strider is going to be huge. Texas 301, and we know Texas is going to have to score a lot of runs to win. The Dodgers may not have to score a lot of runs to win, but they are and will. Best ERA. The Red Sox, with the worst pitching staff on paper, which tells you all you need to know about paper, Red Sox are 1.44. Cleveland at 2.28. Kansas City 2.48. I don't see any of them. Obviously, they're not going to be that low, but seems like hiring Patrick Bailey as their pitching coach was Boston's best free agent pickup. Maybe the best signing in the whole league. Again, Drew, all very good points. And Patrick Bailey obviously has done a good job with his pitching staff. And again, I have to say 9 games into the season. Remember where the Pirates were last year and where they finished. I still think the Red Sox, and I doubt you've changed your mind after 9 games, will finish last in this division by a lot. They do have the best run differential in the division right now. Hard to believe, and I talked about this Saturday. The Yankees are 7-2, and at the time I think they were 6-1, with barely a plus run differential. So, and there's still some considerations to worry about with the Yankees. I still see some shoddy base running. Loaizaga being out. He's an important part of that bullpen. I worry about that. Judge, he'll hit. Stanton, again, this happens every year. He struck out like 15 of his first 25 at bats, something like that. It was 12 and 21 at one point, at least. Finally gets his first home run. He'll hit a couple of home runs. Everybody's going to get excited. Stanton's back, and he's going to hit well for 4 games and then go into a slump for a month. I need better consistency out of this guy. And I know a lot of guys have bashed him for not working hard. I think Stanton works hard. I just think Stanton's game has been going downhill for the last 4 years at least. He's not even close to the player he was when the Yankees traded for him. And I don't think it's because of lack of hard work. Just think his talent has diminished. And he's hurt all the time. You did scare my hiccups away. Thank you, Kenny. I saw the boo coming before. Thank you very much. Rescinded offer. Nah, we won't take that away from Tom. Never take that away from Tom. Kirk McCaskill, Tom Glavine, 2 pitchers whose careers might have gone either way between baseball and hockey. Very good points, too. And both accomplished pitchers. I would say Glavine, certainly a more accomplished pitcher than McCaskill, but a lot of guys have got have choices, whether it's between football and baseball, basketball, and heck, some guys play. Dave DeBuscher played 2 sports. Ron Reed played 2 sports in college. Had to make a choice. The guy I'm thinking of. There's another guy. Chuck Connors actually was a great baseball player, the actor. Alicia Corona, welcome. Our condolences on your dad passing. A wonderful, wonderful, wonderful guy. I hope you're still here to hear this. Stanley Corona, 89, just a pillar of the Perth community. Speaking of the Perth community, we were joking earlier about adding Tom Adamczyk to the roles, honorary at least. But Stanley Corona, just a pillar of the Perth community and the nicest guy you could ever meet. And just sad, to live that long and to have such a tragedy happen. My heart goes out to you and your entire family. And the Coronas have been through a lot between fires and Stanley Jr. sadly passing away. God, I can't believe, Alicia, how long it's been now. Very sad, and our hearts go out to you and your family. So rest in peace, Stanley, and our prayers are with the rest of you guys. I hope you know that. And so with that said, it will be Caitlin Wynn. Hope for your dad. There you go. He was so into watching it this year, watching her this year. And so I'm going to be rooting for Caitlin as well. Sorry, Neil Bush. And this will be just one of the reasons for it. And again, if you didn't know Stanley Corona, I can promise you if you'd met him one time, you would have thought, what a nice guy. And again, tremendous person in the community. So he'll be missed. Great family, the Coronas. Bex has only one error. Nice. Nolan Jones, Dela Cruz lead with 4. Dela Cruz. That's a lot early in the year. And again, I know it's relative. I don't know how many balls. Again, here's the other thing. It's not just how many errors you make at shortstop. It's how many balls do you get to compared to what you don't get to. So, always. I don't know what that means. Paulus, maybe it'll come here. Paulus, I see. This is my question about the Orioles. So you always have been a fan. Okay, good. Paulus said we have been married 42 years. You didn't know you were married 42 years? Sorry, I have to ask. And she said at least that long. So you had to ask her how long you've been an Oriole fan? How long have you been at it this morning, Kenny Gifford? Come on, Boo Powell, Brooks, his twin brother, Frank. Oh, my God. I'm going to get kicked off the air again. Belanger and a second baseman, alias manager, Davey Johnson, he's referring to. One of the great Davey Johnson was a great player, great defensive player, and a clutch player with the Orioles in the 60s, early 70s. He got traded in the offseason of 1972 to the Braves. He never hit more than, I want to say he never hit more than like 18 home runs in his whole career. He hit 43 when he went to the launching pad in Atlanta. And this is pre-steroids, guys. So, and I think they had 4 guys hit 40 home runs that year, if I'm not mistaken. Darrell Evans, Davey Johnson. I can't think of the third guy. Might come to me. Danny Fuller. It's a Manhattan, not a sprint. Oh, it's a marathon, not a sprint. I assume the Tigers are playing the Dodgers this week. Danny, you're going to be very easy to see through here, I'm afraid. Listen, I did pick the Tigers I don't think they're going to win 95 games, don't get me wrong. But I do think they're going to be one of the most improved teams in baseball, and I did pick them to scramble their way to the final wild card in the American League, which, by the way, there are far too many of. We don't need 3 wild cards. We just don't. But it is a marathon. That's one of the reasons I don't want to see the baseball season shortened. It is a marathon. I agree 100%. All of the things we talk about here, 9-10 games into the season, we have to take with a grain of salt. So, as are like the Coyotes. Of Major League. There we go, Jim Behringer. I didn't see that was you. Jim Behringer. Sorry about that. A's are like the Coyotes of Major League Baseball. Embarrassing. There's no way the Coyotes can be as bad as the A's. Nobody. What major league team? So they can't come to an agreement to stay in Oakland, which probably doesn't matter because they're not going to get more than 14,000 people anyway. It's very apropos that they're going to a minor league stadium for the next 3 years. And if this ownership doesn't get their head on straight, Vegas is going to be, you think they're going to come to Vegas to watch a really bad baseball team? If this team's going to win 60 games a year? You watch. They'll stop supporting the Raiders if they don't start winning. But Jim, great to have you on. We got to get you on and talk some hockey as we're closing in on the Stanley Cup playoff chase here pretty soon. Great to have you checking in this morning. No, Jim? Neil, the Athletics will be featured in Major League Baseball 3. I think there was a 3, which seemed to be about the – I think it was Return to the Minors was the name of it, by the way. So it could be a remake of Major League Baseball 3, Return to the Minors. Maybe that's where you're going there, Neil. That's awesome. Got some inside information on the NHL and Amazon. You can either share it or we can talk about it next week for sure, Jim. And again, this is along the lines of what I was talking about. Your sports will be streaming. Amazon wants into more and more stuff badly. Apple wants badly into it. NBC's moving a lot of sports over to their Peacock. CBS Sports will probably move more stuff over to Paramount Plus. ABC, I don't know if they have a streaming affiliate yet, but they will. They'll probably have their own. I could be missing something too. You mentioned women not being able to compete because of athleticism, and Michelle Wee couldn't make it, and a few others. Yeah. I agree. Michelle Wee, listen, she should have just played against the women. She didn't even do well against the women, did she? Just saying. I don't mean to be a jerk. I really don't. New England just re-signed a player to a max. Who did the Patriots re-sign recently? Yeah, I'm not sure where we are there, to be honest with you. Hold on, let me check and see if I can get my Patriot news up quickly. They did have Drake May in again for his 3rd visit, by the way. I mean, interesting what the Patriots do with that 3rd pick. Oh, Kyle Duggar. Yes, they did. And Kyle Duggar, there was a talk they were going to trade Kyle Duggar, and I was happy they did not. That defense is really pretty stout. With Christian Gonzalez coming back from his injury, Matthew Judon coming back, they missed significant parts of the year last year, and this defense was still very good. Kyle Duggar is an integral part of this defense, and one of the better draft picks they've had the last 6 years. And they found him at a Division II school, by the way. So Kyle Duggar does sign a player to the max. There's some talk. Again, you know what I want them to do with the 3rd pick. I want them to trade it. I'm not trade it. Sorry. Draft Marvin Harrison. Take a quarterback later. Now there's a lot of talk about them trading the pick. Maybe to the Giants. Maybe to the Vikings. But I got to get a haul for that. I'm sorry. I'm not just trading back and getting a 2nd rounder next year. I'm holding that pick hostage or I'm using it. Notice the whole thing about Ohtani. You know, it's funny. I talked about this Friday on the MLB update. And I thought for sure, and again, I'm not saying this has been swept under the rug. That's not what I'm saying. I thought the media, and I think Danny Fuller might have even mentioned that this would probably go away quickly. I thought it would linger. I thought there would be some lingering issues. You got a standing ovation opening day in Dodger Stadium. And there's no evidence that Ohtani did anything wrong other than being one of the stupidest human beings on the face of the earth. And I thought it would linger. And again, if MLB's investigation does come up with any kind of fire to go along with the smoke, then this will be reignited for sure. But I am a little surprised too at how quickly the noise went away. Barely a story about it this past week. And maybe because there's nothing to talk about. All you can do is talk about the things that we already know, which is a bit limited. I'll blow this out with where I started. Jack McDowell with his band. There you go. Fastball Bronson. I did know about Jack McDowell. Bronson Arroyo, I did not know about. You did leave out Bernie, but that's okay. Bernie was easy. I didn't know about most of these other guys, Chris, so I agree. Bernie was easy. I think the guy you might be looking for is O. Henry. No, I don't think he hit 40 home runs that year. Maybe he did. Oh, yeah, he did. No, you're right. It is Henry Aaron. I was thinking he broke the record in 73. He broke the record in 74. He only hit like 20 home runs that year. But you're right. It is Henry Aaron. Thank you, Kenny, for that. I had my years mixed up. There's Bill Pulver. Is your bracket still alive? Is your bracket still alive? Good to have you with us, Billy, by the way. I got to get you guys together for a little happy hour, hopefully. I think Drew's got a good idea with buffalo chicken wings here. Some Friday afternoon. I think it's a pretty good spot for that. I got to get my, hold on, I'm trying to find my, let's find the grids. Let's find who we got. I'm not sure you're like, because yes, the only reason I say that is that last night, Rick and Kenny were crowing that they had it wrapped up. I know I don't. There's one bracket where I'm the only one in it. I'm in first. In the women's bracket, it looks to me like Rick has it wrapped up. No, he doesn't, actually. He's got South Carolina winning, and Kenny's got Iowa winning. So I would say if Iowa wins, then Kenny wins. If South Carolina wins, then Rick wins. In the men's, I don't think you're in that one anyway, Billy. Where's the men's bracket? Did it disappear on me? Here it is. Keith dropped the 5th in this, by the way. So is Billy still alive? Oh, I guess they were talking only about the men, because in the men, Rick is in first with the Huskies to win, and it's over. It's over. Who is your pick here? Maybe it's a different pick. Probably not our pool. I guess your pool, which I know you've been crowing about, or a different pool, I should say, Kenny or Billy. Which you've been crowing about on Facebook for a while. I'm assuming that's what you're talking about. You should have got it in mind so that you'd have some bragging rights. Yeah, thank you for that, Drew. I don't know. I got screwed up because I was thinking 73 was the year that Aaron broke the record. I know the year he broke the record, he only hit about 20 home runs. And that Braves team, not very good, so home runs don't do a lot. But that ballpark was, they called the launching pad for a reason. Johnson never hit more than 18, and this wasn't a Brady Anderson type thing. I think he bulked up a little bit. He talks about in his book. I read his book. He's got a great book. I don't know the title of it. But if you want to read a really interesting book behind the scenes of baseball, Davey Johnson's is pretty good. Carlos, Netflix is making a run. I did hear Netflix was going to get, all these streaming services are going to get involved here. Carlos, that's right, too. I'm sorry, my bad. ESPN, what am I talking about? But and ESPN, by the way, is not technically, Disney is a streaming service. ESPN is not, but they are talking about launching a strictly streaming application. The difference between the two, by the way, if you don't know, ESPN is on cable systems. It's a cable channel, really. You need to get, well, you can get it without a cable system on ESPN Plus, which is basically streaming. So I guess technically they have a streaming service now, but they've talked about getting a new streaming service and combining, I think, with some other, possibly combining with some other platforms too. Rick and I are hoping the Huskies win because we move into first and second. I was done the day Auburn went out. Billy's got UConn, in which in the men's tournament, I take it. I love Burns, but he got babied by Edie. I said Burns was not going to be able to contain Edie, and if they played him too much, which they didn't, he didn't play. At least what I was seeing, he didn't play consistently on defense against Edey because he would have gotten foul trouble if he did. And I do think that what the hell is the kid's name? I'm doing it again. Klingen. I think he'll do well against Edey. We're going to find out. And again, it might be a test of how Edey does on the next level because Klingen, the center, he's 7'2", I think, isn't he? How big is he? I think he's 7'2". 7'2", 280 pounds, but he looks more athletic. Now you're going to get a better feel for that when they match up one-on-one, or head-to-head. Whether he is that much more athletic than Edey or not, I think he is. Carlos, still have UConn and Purdue in your pool? It doesn't matter. You're still out, I think. Unless you're not talking about TGI Sports Talk. I don't know if you were even in. Every pool I'm in, I had Auburn to win. I actually could have won every pool that I was in without Auburn even winning because I had 3 or 4 Final Four teams alive. And if there was an upset winner, which would not have happened, somebody would have had Purdue or Kentucky or UConn. But if a Kentucky won or somebody like that won, I would have had a shot. But now I finished with nobody in the Final Four. I didn't think you were in our pool. Sometimes I don't know who people are. I didn't know who Poppy was until I got Kenny had left that. Well, again, Reese left school as soon as they lost. I mean, again, don't get on her. This happens all the time. As soon as seasons are over, players declare for the draft. Same thing with the men. As soon as their seasons were over, they would declare. Some teams that didn't even make the NCAA tournament, as soon as they were out, they declared they were going to the draft or transferring. So, again, I'm not going to get on Angel Reese for saying she's leaving. It's time. You know what? She could very well be a better player in the WNBA than Caitlin Clark. I don't know. Caitlin Clark is a better college basketball player. But the game's different. The teams will be different. The approaches will be different. So it remains to be seen. We had somebody, I think it was Steve Orpello, who said he didn't think that Caitlin Clark would even be able to compete in the WNBA. I do. Again, I know you guys think I don't watch women's sports ever, but I was a big Sue Bird fan, and I watched her play, and I think Caitlin Clark's may be in the Sue Bird mold as she moves into the pros. We'll see. The question will be, is anybody going to be there to see it? And it's another good question about and happy birthday to Mark Robertshaw. As Rick pointed out, very loyal listener as well. Wish Mark a very happy birthday today. Thank you for pointing that out, Rick, because I hadn't looked at Facebook's birthdays yet today. One thing I with the whole popularity of the women's college game, it's going to be very interesting to see if that plays over into the pros at all. Because right now it is not. The TV contract is nothing. Their audience is very small, both on broadcast and also in the stands. They have trouble getting people in the stands to, I missed Jim's. Jim, if you're still here, I didn't see your text until just now. I'm only on for another 10 minutes or so, so I'm not gonna. We'll get you on next week, and we'll talk about all the news with the NHL. I promise. All right. And that 9:00 hour, that's good for you. Where was I? Oh, the WNBA. They are not popular, and it's going to be interesting to see if any of this carries over to that game, and I don't think it's going to. I really don't think it's going to, but we'll see. I've been wrong before. I was obviously wrong here. We haven't got to this. I'm surprised it took us till 10:15 to get to the Diggs trades specifically, and also Mixon and Hunter. Houston Texans additions. I got a comment too about the Marlins that I keep forgetting to bring up. Houston Texans have brought in Mixon, as we know, to play running back, giving him a pretty good sized contract. They traded for Stephon Diggs and pass rusher Daniel Harris to make them a serious team. I agree, but I disagree in a way. Joe Mixon had taken a step back the last year or so. I still like him, and I think he could still be a good feature back. But it's not a given. Hunter, again, the defense can always use some help, and I think it's possible he is the most important part of this threesome. It's possible. Stephon Diggs, it depends on which Stephon Diggs you get. If you get the guy who was a problem in the Buffalo locker room the last 2 years, then you could have a problem with no young leaders on this team, or no real leaders on this team. I'm sorry, experienced leaders on this team. Can't seem to get the words out I want. Doesn't mean there's no leaders. Again, remember when the Patriots are bringing guys like Corey Dillon and Randy Moss, and people said, oh man, there are problems. There was guys to police them. I don't know who that guy is going to be. DeMarco Ryans is a young coach, and by all accounts can maybe stand up to these guys, but we'll see. Now, the good thing about Diggs is the Texans have said they're going to allow him just to be a free agent in 2025. So Stephon Diggs, at this point in his career, is maybe playing for the last big contract of his career. And if Stephon Diggs is motivated and bought in, he could have a huge year this year, and that would certainly help C.J. Stroud and the Texans. But I can see this going either way. Right now, I'm going to say this is going to be a plus because of the things I said. I like Joe Mixon. Don't like his behaviors off the field. I like Stephon Diggs. I don't like his attitude in the clubhouse, but I don't think it's as cancerous as some other guys have been in their careers. And again, when you're playing for a contract and maybe your last chance at a big contract, it has a tendency to motivate guys. I'd be careful the next team he goes to. But Houston could make a big jump. And again, I think it's very good. They're not just running it back. They're not just running it back. Because a lot of really good young teams do that. I watch it with the Patriots when Bill Parcells was there, and they made the playoffs in year 3. I want to say year 3. Went out in the first round, and then finished 6-10 the next year. They took a step back because they basically ran it back. This team is adding really significant pieces to what's already a good football team. And if those guys are focused and bought into what the Texans are selling, this team could be a real contender next year. It's a good question, Kenny. To my point, WNBA has been on the verge of financial collapse for years. I don't know how many teams are making money at all. Now, maybe, I mean, there's been other big stars, maybe bigger stars. Well, probably not people there's probably been better players that have come into the WNBA than Caitlin Clark, but nobody I can remember has ever come into the NBA with the type of notoriety she has, or Angel Reese for that matter, to a lesser degree. And publicity is a good thing for a league trying to get eyeballs and fannies in the seats and eyeballs on the TVs. So we'll see. It's going to be key to the survival of the WNBA for sure. Diggs won't be. He will be a cancer when he only gets 2 catches. We'll see. Again, players get motivated not to be a problem when they're playing for a contract. And Diggs is going to be playing for a contract. He's going to be a free agent after next season. And it's not a bad gamble. Maybe, if he sucks, he's a $24 million loss or $27 million loss. It's money to these guys. It's just play money to these guys. These teams. The Bills have to eat $31 million in dead cap space for him, but they saved $27 million in salary. And I'm not sure that the Bills' window is completely closed, by the way. I expect them to draft a wide receiver. Maybe they can still go out and trade, or there's still a couple wide receivers on the market. Maybe not highest level, but listen, you can talk about Stephon Diggs being a cancer all you want. But before the last couple of years, I guarantee you Josh Allen would not have progressed to be arguably the second best quarterback in the NFL without Stephon Diggs to throw the ball to. Just saying. And again, this could go the other way. You could be exactly right, Danny. And I'm not trying to be wishy-washy here. My opinion will be it will go well because he's playing for a contract. If he wasn't playing for a contract and maybe his last big contract, he's going to want a long-term, multi-year guaranteed contract. Not going to get it if he's a problem. Now, C.J. Stroud's going to have the problem of keeping him happy. I get that. So did Josh Allen. So did the Vikings quarterbacks. Case Keenum is the only guy I can think of, but I'm sure they had better players than that too at some point. We got a few minutes left. Kenny says to a quick note, be sure to wear your glasses tomorrow. I'm going to be sitting here in my office. The window will be open. I'll see it get dark and I'll know the eclipse is happening. I don't have any interest in it. I mean, I enjoy space exploration. I enjoy some of the things that go around this. I don't understand schools closing. I don't understand, the people who think, oh my God, we had an earthquake in New York and now there's an eclipse coming. With the end of the world is on the way. There's people, again, I know you're not saying that, Kenny. It's just whatever. I saw one in 1979. I'm happy. I don't need to see one now. I saw it. I know what it is. I know what it looks like. When it gets dark, I'll know what I didn't see, and that's fine. But anybody else, be sure you wear your glasses, please. I don't want to see anybody unable to come to the shows next week because they burn their retinas. Bo Crouch, good to have you with us. Bo, give us some, before I have to sign off in 7 minutes, please do me a favor and put up some of your show times and such and where people can see it. Bo does great stuff on Northeast Streaming Sports. I know he's on midday now with the Philly sports guy, Jamie Paggs. At least some of the week. I don't know if it's every day. But give us a little rundown of your times and dates. I like to push other guys' shows, especially when they show up. And Bo does some great stuff. Bo, what do you got? Diggs will be that's exactly what I said. It's overtime he becomes a problem. In Buffalo, he was a model citizen years 1 and 2 and helped Josh Allen become Josh Allen. And again, he's playing for a contract. Every problem player, not every, most, I should never say, you never say absolutes, Keith. Most problem players are not nearly the problem they are other times when they're playing for a contract. I think it's worth the gamble for the Texans. Oh, it's coming to an end in November? I didn't hear that. I wish I'd known. I mean, why are we even still here? Y2K was going to wipe us out. 2012 was going to wipe us out. What's coming in November? Oh, I know where you're going. I made a mistake. Yeah, I bit. Give me a better choice, Kenny. That's all I can tell you. Give me a better choice. Oh, my God. Now, again, my party's stupid for making me vote where I got to vote, but whatever. Bo, definitely come and check out. Bo will come check your show out. Oh, I think Danny's saying he'll check your show out. But Bo does some good stuff. 5 days a week here on the network, 9 to 11. That's the show you do with the Philly sports guy, also known as Jamie Pags. Bronny James will play in the Olympics with LeBron. Oh, there's a good hot take. With 4 minutes left in the show, I want to get under 2 hours so I can reshare this at midnight. By the way, so we're going to try to sign off by 10:30. Scott Cote is usually coming in late, keeping me long. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't even know when the next Olympics is. Olympics are something I used to really enjoy, and I've lost all interest because there's no amateurism there anymore either. You can see the same thing happen to college sports. I thought you said Monday through Friday. Oh, 5 days per week. I see. Monday through Friday. You can catch. So there you go. Oh, that's Danny. Yes, it's Monday. I believe it's Monday through Friday. And that's Eastern time too, Danny. Don't forget. And you can also watch him on replays. So great stuff. Bo does some great stuff. Philly sports guy does some great stuff. I thought Bo still had his standalone show too. That's why I was wondering too. Too many other things to list. Oh, I got you. Oh, it's good to have you with us this morning, Bo, though. Bo does some good stuff for sure. Bronny will be a liability on that team. Listen, and again, we got a couple minutes left, and I had this discussion with Mac on Friday. I think it was Friday. I don't know what Bronny is. I have no idea. The kid had a heart issue and missed half a season this year. I'm sure wasn't in top basketball shape, wasn't on the same page with the rest of the team. So I have no idea whether Bronny is a really good player or a really bad player. I have no idea. Is he overhyped? Sure. His father and the media are that problem, not him. I think Bronny gets a bad deal here because this isn't his issue. You know, I mean, he may be horrible, and he might be a liability to that team. And again, I don't even know when the Olympics are. So, anyway, guys, great show. One more time, Alicia, if you're still out there, my condolences to you and the whole Corona clan on the passing of your dad. Tragic passing of your dad. Just awful circumstances. And a wonderful guy. But guys, thanks for tuning in. A great participation again today from you guys. I cannot talk enough about it. Catch us Wednesday with the Sports Huddle. We'll be deciding what to do with the Sports Huddle as we get into the summer months. We'll stay on through the spring because we still got spring football and transfer portal and stuff. We took a few weeks off last year in the summer, but we'll see if we'll do that again. But Fridays, we'll be starting the one-on-one with Keith Engle interview show again in a couple of weeks, and I'll have more information on that next Friday. But next Friday afternoon at 3 p.m. will be the first one. It'll normally be at 9 a.m. I know it's a little confusing, but we'll get it straightened out for you. And it'll be Marty Cordova, former Rookie of the Year with the Twins. We'll see you guys next week. Have a great Sunday.